In this section I'm going to look at ComplyPro's ability to work with verification and validation, and as part of that some of the process associated with suspect linking. Let me start to do that at the design package metrics activity at the top. You can also get to this by just simply going through to the design package at the bottom. Now when I open up the design package metrics, it's showing me in this case 7 different design packages on the system, and it's showing me a set of metrics or stacked bars as we call them, with information about each of them that's been pulled out of the modules that they are and the data that's held within. And at the end here is an allocation to subcontractor. I'm a member of the admin team at the moment and have full access to the system, but if I was logged in as a member as a Mr. Subby1, then they would only see that row on the system, and indeed throughout the rest of the system only have the rights pertinent to them as a subcontractor or as one of the subcontractor 1 group in the system. So we've got by requirement type here. We'll see where the information is coming from inside this design package in a minute, but we've got them each design requirement tagged inside or categorized as being either a requirement, a heading, or information. In this case here, you can see they're all requirements in here. We've got 242 design requirements that have been created by the subcontractor 1 in the bridge structures, but in the overhead wiring only 5 requirements have been done to this point, and indeed nobody's put any headings or information around these requirements at this moment in time. No designs have yet been done in these design packages, and you can see that it's yet to be ascertained as to who the design contractor is for these particular design packages. Looking along then, we've got some metrics pulling out from within the module as well for build validation status. So this is following through from an evidence submission perspective. So I can see that of these 242 requirements, I can see that 2 of them have currently got their evidence, having had their evidence been proposed. 1 of those has been queried back by the client. 1 has had its evidence reproposed following a query, and 2 have currently had their evidence accepted. Everything else hasn't yet had anything. Hasn't yet entered the evidence validation or build validation process. On the end here we can see a set of flags from validation alerts, so this is directly related to this process, but the system is looking against a date or dates for each of the design requirements for where the evidence should be required to be submitted and accepted. So it's telling me that I've actually got 4 requirements where my evidence is now overdue from what had been agreed. But this, and the dates, if they fell within the next 7 days or on today's date, they would obviously show some separate colours on here as well. But that does give me a real life view on this, because I might have 242 requirements. Only 2 have had their evidence accepted to date, but there's only 4 others as opposed to 40 or 400 others which are overdue. So it puts a perspective on the current situation. If I now look into this design package, then I can see that I've got, for each of these designs, let me just scroll along now because I've got a lot of information on here to my verification and validation information. Then I'm actually going to go through the build validation process as a secondary process here. The first process I want to look at is in association with the parent SRS items. So as my designer, as the designer, say I'm Mr. Subcontractor 1 now, I will have created all of my designs in this kind of design response. All of those designs will be linked up to the parent SRSs, to the parent SRS item they're designed to help satisfy. So I can see, if I click back up to, let's just look at SRS2 here. If I click on that, it will take me up to the parent SRS item that it's helping to satisfy. So as the designer, I'm responsible for satisfying all of the requirements on here. Scroll along to here we are. So under the specification development section, I mentioned I'll be looking back at this child verification status and the suspect flag and a checking process. I'm now going to work through that process. So regardless of the item here, let me just select a new item, a new row. So I have submitted a design package on here. I've built my design package in order to satisfy the particular requirements in this SRS. I'm going to ignore the fact that obviously this is just a heading, and it really doesn't matter. It's just another row on this table. Ordinarily, you may not derive children beneath a heading, but the principle is exactly the same. So I've essentially created two different child design requirements that satisfy this SRS requirement. So what I want to do is, as the designer, I can't edit any of this SRS text or anything, but I can as the admin, so I can just double click and edit it. So I want to actually, in the status, as the designer, I want to propose this solution for this SRS item. I want to essentially saying back to the SRS owner, I want to say, here's my design, here's my information designs here for why. Click on the Children tab, scroll this up a little bit. This is why this is my design to satisfy this particular SRS requirement. So I then propose that back to the SRS owner, and the SRS owner can then be notified of that. You can see that from the metrics of where solutions have been proposed or re-proposed. You can then view that and decide and look through the design responses, i.e. the children to this item. So if I'm looking at this particular item here, I can look on the Children tab and I can see here's my designs, and this is how I'm satisfying this SRS requirement. So he can say, well, if he agrees that it's a satisfactory design and that the design is kind of compliant and satisfies the SRS statement, then he can look at this and go to solution accepted. Okay, so now the solution has been accepted. So let me just save this off now. Okay, so that's now been saved off. But what happens now if one of my design items, so let me look at the children here. So here's my two design requirements at the bottom. Let's just say I come along and through the change process I change this design requirement. I'm just forcing the case here in the interest of time. Because I'm an admin, I can just change whatever I want, but obviously certain things would be locked down and forced through a process. But just the principle is, if this was changed, and I now save this off, you're going to notice something flag up here. It's going to tell me that this acceptance is a suspect acceptance because it was accepted as being a valid design solution at the time that, or I should explain that differently, one of the child items, the design items, has now changed since it was accepted. So because that's the case, it may not still satisfy the SRS item. What is the change? Why has it changed? I know I forced this through, and this would have already got authorized through a change process, but it's just an explanation of how ComplyPro can help you to work. Or indeed, somebody from the admin team might just go and change something when they shouldn't have done so. So it will just flag to you those cases for where the design item has changed more recently than the design solution had been accepted by the SRS owner. So now, if I come along and I put my initials in here to check this off, I could put my initials and a date even, and save this again. You'll see now that I've rechecked the design, and I'm happy as the SRS owner that it's still accepted, and I don't have any problem. So there's a sort of a workflow associated with suspect linking on the back of verification acceptance of a design compliance with an SRS statement. So let me go back in now to my design package. So here's my main design package, DP01, 02, etc. If I scroll along, the last thing I want to show you is these fields associated with my build validation status. Of course, all of these, they're just names. You can create as many levels of verification and validation in the system as you wish, just designed to give you an understanding of the sort of flavour of how ComplyPro can work. It's completely customized to your workflow, of course. So if I review an existing one, I can see here that my evidence has been proposed. I've got a field here just to capture, from an example point of view, what the evidence due dates are. Now this this flag could be somewhere completely separate. It could be a date held in a separate module for the evidence due date for the entire bridge design package, or it could be modifiable by somebody else, and it could be line statement by statement or design item by design item. I've left it in here so I can modify dates accordingly. So if my if I was to change these dates, then that would affect whether or not the evidence was overdue or not. So if as the 15th of the 7th 2012, that you'll see is greyed out, and I can't change that. Indeed, I can't change anything about this because the evidence has been accepted from the build validation point of view. So once it's essentially built and accepted, the as-built drawing has been done. Obviously, it prevents me from changing anything in there at all. It's all locked down at that point. If I look at another item, then like here, then you'll see that it's white and I can change it. So let me just pop in let's pop in a different date on here. That's 05/07. Okay, and immediately you'll see, because that date is in a couple of days time, it's now being flagged as due within 7 days, and that would show up on DP metrics. You can now see that there is an additional requirement due within 7 days. So this pulls information out of the information inside each of these design packages. Okay, so this build validation status can go through a process. So let's look at this same item here that's due within 7 days. We can, as the designer, we're going to submit our evidence, so we're going to propose our evidence here. We can fill in our detail, detail of the evidence just textually in this box, depending upon what the nature of the evidence needs to be for this item. We can also put in, some sort of a URL to externally linked evidence. I'll just copy that one to put something in there. And then this evidence query section is an intermediary stage whereby I've now proposed my evidence as the design consultant. Here's my evidence essentially. Here's the external backup evidence, and here's the textual evidence in the system. I will then review that because it's been proposed as the client or as the design package owner, or whichever role it is responsible for checking the evidence submission. I will then be able to take that and either accept this or query it. If I query it, I can change it to queried, and I can put in here I need an as-built drawing or something like that. So by the fact it's queried, it will then flag back to the design consultant to look at this, see what the query is, and go, oh, right, okay, they need to put their as-built drawing together, link to that drawing, and now when they've done that, they can obviously, so they modify their evidence essentially, and then they can repropose this for consideration again. Now that it's been reproposed, then the evidence checker can then accept this or query it again. Now it's been accepted, that's the close of the process. So back in my design package metrics, we can now see that we now have 3 requirements design requirements where the evidence has been accepted. Okay, thanks very much.